Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I normally deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video though, at the end of Season 2, I'm just going to talk about a little what could have been project. We've had a few of these throughout the season, just for Kamigawa and for Lorwyn and Morningtide. So we're just going to have one more here where I'm going to talk about Shadowmoor Eventide, how the decks were put together, and kind of honestly I think a bit of a missed opportunity the Magic the Gathering design team sort of had in making those pre-constructed decks for both Shadowmoor and Eventide. So let's talk about first deck construction rules when I make these decks. So it has to be 60 cards, 2 rares and 13 uncommons. The rares have to be from the current set, and at least 50% of non-basic land cards must be from the new set. So the deck I'm using to kind of demonstrate my point here is kind of for Shadowmoor. So that means the rares are going to be from Shadowmoor. Basically, all the cards are going to be from Shadowmoor because it's the first set in that block. But let's look at Back for More, which is a mono green deck. So let's dive in and see what I made. So 26 creatures, 4 enchantments, 3 instants, 2 sorceries, 24 land, and mana curve off to the side there. So mono green deck. So let's talk about hybrid mana, because this is, I think, like a big flaw, I guess, in how the Shadowmoor Eventide decks were built. So the big gimmick of Shadowmoor block was hybrid mana. Like I would say, probably about 50% of the cards use hybrid mana, like in their casting costs. And the thing with hybrid mana is it's not the same as traditional multicolor, and the decks are built as if they are like the like the green-white deck uses only cards that use that have green-white hybrid mana costs, when really there's no requirement to do so, because the whole thing with hybrid is you can cast it with either color. So what actually they could have done is in that green and white deck, you also could have had for example, say in Shadowmoor, you could have had like green-red cards which have green or red hybrid mana, and you could have had white-blue cards which have white or blue hybrid, because you can cast it with white mana, and it just would have, I think, given a lot more variety in the decks. I say they're built as if it's kind of traditional, like you need a green and you need a white, and that wasn't true at all. So I think they kind of actually missed out on doing some potentially like quite interesting deck building, and kind of actually dipping the toe into doing kind of monocolor, tricolor decks, if that makes sense. Especially as the next set is Alara, so I think that's a good way of getting people ready for like a proper multicolored set. I know that sounds kind of maybe a little snobbish, but I do consider Alara to be a proper multicolored set, whereas Shadowmoor is, and Eventide, I say, the hybrid mana is still multicolored, but I say it's this it's kind of like easy multicolored, because that's kind of my thing with hybrid, is that you're getting usually all the benefits of being multicolor, which is counting for effects that care about color, and usually slightly more interesting designs with none of the drawbacks, which is like a harder casting value. You don't require more than one color. But anyway, that's my rant about hybrid and kind of how the deck's been built. So the deck I've put together here, this green one, it is going to use cards that are mono green. It's going to use green white hybrid cards, and it's going to use green red hybrid cards, because I say it's essentially monocolor tricolor, which I think that's I think a real potential that these decks could have done. So Back for More, it is a deck that cares all about persist. And like your creatures dying and coming back with counters, and you taking counters off them so they can keep on dying, and like your creatures basically never go away. So one of the rares would be Heartmender, which is a 4 mana 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, you remove a -1/-1 counter from every creature you control, and it has persist. So just really hard to kill it. 3 Medicine Runners, 2 mana for a 2/1. It comes into play, you remove a counter from target permanent. Yep, which is gave me -1/-1 counters, and then 2 Chain Breakers, 2 colorless for a Scarecrow, comes into play with 2 -1/-1 counters on it. You can pay 3 and tap to remove a -1/-1 counter from target creature. So this is kind of like the theme of the deck, is removing -1/-1 counters from your own creatures, so you can keep having them come back essentially. So the other rare of the deck would be Woodfall Primus, which is 5 and 3 green for a 6/6 with trample. When it comes into play, destroy a non-creature permanent, and it has persist. So again, it dies, it comes back, you get the effect again. You can find a way to take the counter off it, so it can just keep dying, keep triggering this ability. 2 Kitchen Finks, 3 mana for a 3/2. When it comes to play, you gain 2 life. Has persist. 3 safe hold elite. 2/2 for 2 with persist. And then Skullsback Marauders, which is like red green, which you can cast because you just have forests. And it's it's hybrid, and it's a 5/2 with trample and persist, and this takes the just gives the deck sort of another option rather than just I say pointlessly limiting it to white green, because there's no reason to limit it to white green. You can splash out into the other hybrid color cards. And same with Boggart Ramgang, 3 red green hybrid for a 3/3 with haste and wither. And then 2 Drove of Elves, just a good green creature. Parent ups each number of green permanents you control and has hexproof. Roughshod Mentor, which gives all your green creatures trample, and 2 Walkleaf Cavaliers, which is a 3/4 with vigilance for 3. So a single Elvish Hex Hunter, just taps to destroy an enchantment. Yeah, fine, just a little utility creature. Got to have Devoted Druid in a deck where we're going to be removing -1/-1 counters. Let's let you ramp really quickly. 2 Morsel Hoarders, 6 mana for a 6/4, comes into play with 2 -1/-1 counters on it, and you can remove a -1/-1 counter to give yourself 1 mana of any color. And then moving on to the other non-creature spells. So a single Barkshell Blessing, it's just a pump spell. Gloom Widow's Feast is a bit of utility kill flying creatures. So Howl of the Night Pack now I think works really well because we're in a deck where you only have forests. Like, you haven't pointlessly split your mana base across like forests and another basic land type. So you have just forests. So this is always going to when you cast it, it's always going to have maximum effect. But you still have, say, because of the hybrid mana, you've still splashed out to get kind of things of other colours, and to get tools that mono green on its own wouldn't normally have. And then single Tower Above, which is a pump spell as well. 2 Flourishing Defenses. Whenever a -1/-1 counter is placed on a creature, you get a 1/1 green Elf Warrior creature token. So this goes with all the persist stuff. It dies, it comes back in with a counter on it, and you get an Elf token as well, which is pretty good, I think. And then 1 each of Runes of the Deus and Shield of the Oversoul. These are both really good. You've got creatures that are both red and green and white to get the benefit from these. So, yep, probably just one of them. And then just a single Sapseek Forest, just because to take up some room. But yeah, I hope that's all conveys what I was thinking. Because the Shadowmoor decks, the Eventide ones I think are a little better. But the Shadowmoor ones, when I was looking at them, they felt like so bland because they're sort of multicolour, but they're not, because they just kind of feel somewhere between being either, like, say, Mortal Coil, like that feels, it doesn't feel entirely blue, it doesn't feel entirely black, but it doesn't have its own kind of identity because of, I think, I do think the set kind of overused hybrid. It kind of made it like less special, honestly, and and I just think if those decks had splashed out to include like a third color, I think it would have been pretty interesting. Like Shadowmoor could have been like shard colors. So like this one here, it's green, red, white, and then in Eventide you could have had them be wedge colors. So you could have had like green, red, blue example. And yeah, I just think that could have been led to some interesting decks where they splash out and just have a sort of a wider variety of cards to pick from, and there'd be less kind of cards that are kind of just there to fill space, essentially. But those are just my thoughts on Shadowmoor and Eventide, those decks. What do you think of this kind of deck that I've proposed here, where it's the monocolor, tricolor? Please, put a comment below. If you've just got any thoughts about the deck or just about Shadowmoor, Eventide, or hybrid mana at all, put that down below. I'll give it a read. Always like reading people's comments. So next video is going to be the season 2 finale. That's where I'm going to just kind of give an update where we are on the project and go through my top 5 and bottom 5 of the decks that I reviewed this season, and sort of give a bit of an explanation what's coming up in season 3. So until then, thank you for watching and listening. Have a great day.